The most times a politician has changed their party in 2 weeks is probably 5. In 1997, Lal was elected as an independent candidate in India. He joined the National Congress Party, then changed to the United Front. In the coming days, he changed back and forth several times, each party offering a better deal. The story became a national joke in India, and in 1985 a new anti-defection law was introduced to put a stop to this kind of behaviour. In Kenya, politicians don't change parties as rapidly as Lal, but over the course of a career, most will be part of several different coalitions. Kenya's president, William Ruto, started off red, then he was orange, then he turned yellow, red again, and finally yellow. And it's not just colours which change. Rivals switch from enemies to friends, handshakes abound, and voters are left confused by deals made by their representatives. This unstable political system can create chaos in government. Most deputy presidents fall out with the president. The 2024 feud between Gachagua and Ruto is part of a long tradition in Kenyan politics. So, why are so many Kenyan politicians chameleons? The idea of chameleon politics doesn't come from Kenya, but an East African neighbour. Malawi gained its independence in 1964, and for the next 40 years the dictator Kamuzu Banda ruled the country. By 1994, pressure forced the government to allow a multi-party democracy. Over the next few years, Malawi saw a colourful explosion of political parties. The Malawian poet Jack Mapanje watched these colour-changing politicians and observed the country had become a democracy of chameleons. But in the 1990s and 2000s, Malawi was also a young democracy. Most people weren't used to having a choice when they voted. In rural villages, many people just voted for someone from their region or ethnic group. Malawi's first president won the 1994 election after he promised to give everyone a new pair of shoes. This promise was never fulfilled.
We are promising the people of Malawi change.
If you look at maps from Malawi's first 3 elections, you can see a strong bias for people to vote along regional lines. It wasn't until 2009 this began to change. The 2009 election results shocked everyone. The incumbent, Bingu wa Mutharika, won with 66% of the vote. More importantly, he broke up the traditional pattern of tribal voting. So how did Mutharika do it? From 2004 to 2009, Mutharika used government resources to supply free fertilizer to farmers across the nation. He especially targeted regions seen as weak links, areas where people voted tribally but could still be won over. It was a bit more sophisticated than offering everyone free shoes, but the message was the same. This government will deliver for everyone. And for many, Mutharika did. Ethnicity is still a factor in Malawian politics, but Mutharika's victory showed there is a way to break through tribal voting and deliver, to stabilise the democracy of chameleons. Like Malawi, Kenya became a multi-party democracy in the 1990s. Kenya also saw an explosion of political parties, and many people voted along tribal lines. Daniel Arap Moi won the 1992 elections by exploiting ethnic divisions within the opposition. Moi only won 36% of the vote, but the opposition split in 3. Since that 1992 election, many Kenyans have continued to vote for their man. In 2007, tribalism was responsible for political violence which swept through the country. Worried that other ethnic groups will take state resources, voters automatically select a candidate from their tribe to represent their interests in parliament. This creates an elite group of tribal representatives from across Kenya, and since no single group has a majority, it means politicians create alliances to run the country. Alliances not based on shared policies, but pure political expediency. These colourful coalitions form as quickly as they fall apart, making Kenyan politics a game of musical chairs, or perhaps it's more like rearranging the pieces of a puzzle. The deteriorating relationship between President Ruto and his deputy, Gachagua, is a good example of this dynamic. Gachagua used to be Ruto's lifeline in parliament. He was a way to secure votes from the Kikuyu community. But in 2024, Ruto created a broad-based government with the opposition party, Azimio. This meant he was less reliant on his own coalition. The relationship between Ruto and Gachagua continued to deteriorate, eventually leading to Gachagua being impeached in parliament. Everyone accused everyone else of tribalism. In this crazy game of shifting colours, the only people taken advantage of are Kenyan voters. The colours change, but the system remains the same. Instead of arguing who has the better political ideas, parties rely on tribal prejudice to gain votes, and then do deals with each other to share out the spoils of government. Different tribes existed long before European colonizers arrived in Kenya. There were many languages and cultures, but what really set people apart was how they interacted with the environment. Pastoralists measured value in livestock and secured land to graze cattle. Farmers planted crops and irrigated fields. There was some intertribal war, but ethnic identity was not politicized like it is today. As guns and traders traveled from the coast to the interior, the relationships between different groups became unstable. When the British arrived, they found it easy to exploit cultural difference, to use the tactic of divide and rule. The colonialists used existing customs and invented new ones. Every tribe needed chiefs to represent it in the colonial government. Some ethnic groups were forced to move or make way for white settlers. The colonial government divided Kenya to rule it. They were so successful that many people only resisted the government on tribal lines. This tribalism even affected the Mau Mau rebellion, which struggled to move beyond the Kikuyu ethnic group. The colonial government's policy of divide and rule, and the unequal persecution suffered by different tribes, created an independent Kenyan state where ethnic bedfellows eyed each other nervously. The people didn't trust each other, and it was much easier to worry about the people in the next village than vote for the good of the nation. Since Kenya's independence in 1963, many politicians have played the ethnic card to protect their power. But political tribalism is connected to corruption and unstable politics in Kenya. Public intellectuals like PLO Lumumba preach against it in the media. Kenya's Gen Z protesters proudly declare themselves to be non-tribal. Tribal politics is becoming taboo, but at the highest level of government, it is still a big factor in how power is shared. I am Nigerian because a white man created Nigeria and gave me that identity. I am black because the white man constructed black to be as different as possible from his white. But I was Igbo before the white man came, says a character in Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's book, Half of a Yellow Sun. There is a seductive power to ethnic identity, and Kenya is certainly more beautiful for its multi-ethnic diversity. From Somalis in the northeast, the Luo in Nyanza, the people of the mountain, all the way to the Maasai in the Rift Valley. Kenya deserves a government which will deliver for everyone, not one comprised of political chameleons. And the quickest way to bring that about is to vote for politicians because of their policies, not their tribe. For more videos like this, like and subscribe to the Africa Review.